really amazed that I was even opening my eyes because I was supposed to be in a coma. Hey everyone, it's Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's a little bit personal, but I do want to share it with all of you. I have a lot of people ask me, how do people know they have T1D, or are you born with it? If you're born with it, how do you live from it when you're first born? So I'm just going to share the story about how I learned that I had T1D and how it all went down. This is going to be a pretty brief explanation of what happened. I'm going to try to shorten it as much as I can because there were a lot of things that kind of led us in the direction of knowing that there was something wrong with me, but I'm just going to get to like, there's something wrong, we need to go to the hospital. So when I was around 2.5 to 3 years old, my mom and I went to Disney because she had a business trip, but we were staying in a Disney resort, and of course they have like the hospital and everything next to Disney. Basically we got there and I got really sick, I couldn't hold anything down, and it was just, I was in the bed all day, and of course I'm at Disney. My mom feels bad because we're at Disney and I'm sick, so we can't go anywhere. I'm laying in the bed all day, and by laying in the bed, I mean I'm like getting sick, like every hour. It's just not good. Eventually, I did kind of stop being sick, and my mom wanted to take me down to the pool because she did want me to have a little bit of fun while I was there, while I wasn't being sick, and she tried to put on the bathing suits that I had from when we went shopping right before. We always go shopping right before trips to get new bathing suits and stuff. So she'd gotten this bathing suit maybe 2 weeks ago, and she tried to put it on me and it fell off. Like it just didn't fit at all. Completely too big for me. I'd lost like 20 pounds in 2 weeks, and like that was her light bulb moment, like, okay, we need to get to the hospital or something. So we went to this place that was like a doctor's office. It was not the hospital, but there were specialty doctors in the place that we were going to. By the time that we got there, I was pretty much unconscious. I was in and out. She said I was in and out of consciousness. Like, I was completely pale, so skin color gone. I was completely pale, and she had to carry me everywhere because like I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. It was like I went to sleep and then I would come back, but I would come back and I wasn't really there. The way that she describes it is, and I know most of you don't know what this feels like, but when my blood sugar goes low, it's kind of like that. If it went so low that it got to the point where like I would pass out, that's kind of how she's describing it. But it was weird because she said I would go to sleep and then I'd wake up again, and then I'd go to sleep and then I'd wake up again. And it's strange because if my blood sugar was low, pretty much you get knocked out, that's it. You need to go to the hospital and they need to wake you up, or like that's it. It was like you had a good run. So it was a bit strange what I was doing. She said that we sat in the waiting room area, filled out paperwork or whatever, and then I went to where the doctors were, and of course there was something wrong with me because I'm half unconscious, so there was no question of like, what did you do, like, what's wrong with her? Like, there was obviously something wrong, so we didn't have to go through that. The doctors ended up testing me for over 4 hours. I'm still not there at all. 4 hours testing, found absolutely nothing wrong with me. But, of course, they're not just going to be like, oh, yeah, go home, it's fine, she's fine, go home. Of course, they're not going to do that because there was something definitely wrong. My mom is panicking, she's freaking out. I'm not exactly sure who the driver was of the car. She had someone from the place where she was working at like drive us over there, so I'm not sure if he or she was in the room with her, but she is completely freaking out because again I'm like 2 to 3, so imagine that, like if my mom and her 2 or 3-year-old is like looking like they're dying, like that would be freaking out. I'd be freaking out. I don't even know how she had, like props to her, because if I was in that situation panicking, I don't know how I would think I need to call someone to bring me to a doctor's office. I'd just be freaking out. So they were testing me for 4 hours, didn't find anything. Doctor basically walked up to my mom and was like, get her to the hospital. And so we drove to the guy, or the girl, drove to the hospital, and I assume we did more paperwork, and then I was in the ER. They had to do more testing, obviously. They didn't know what it was. More testing, like 4 more hours. I'm still not there. Completely don't know what's going on. I can tell you I don't remember this part. I do remember some bits, but I don't even remember that other doctor's office. I don't remember getting to the hospital. I remember being in the car going to the hospital, and we were in this, the inside of the car was beige, and it had only 2 rows of seats, so it was like the front seat, the passenger seat, and then like a row of seats in the back. So my mom was holding me, and I can just remember pulling up to the, like, I could see the ER, and that's it. That's all I remember. So I was in the car, dude was driving, I can see the ER, then everything right after that is completely gone, don't know what happened. So everything else that I'm telling you is from what my mom tells me. They test some more, and the hospital did figure out, they're like, hey, she has type 1, her blood sugar is like 977. And of course they probably didn't. My parents, my dad had gotten there by that time. My dad was working still, like here, like at home. He wasn't, because my mom was working, but she was just working. We were at Disney. So my dad had made it to the hospital by then. They were like, hey, she has type 1, her blood sugar is through the roof. And they probably didn't know that 977 was like as bad as it was. But like anyone who knows anything, 300 is a bad number. Like, and I was 977, so not good. At that point, if they didn't know that it was bad, they knew it was bad because the doctors were like, they were really amazed that I was even opening my eyes, because I was supposed to be in a coma. So it was very strange that I was doing that thing where I was like going to sleep and then waking up and then going to sleep and waking up, because I should have just been in a coma. But I wasn't. Luckily, I wasn't in a coma. And this is the stuff that I kind of remember now. So I'm in the hospital bed, and there were chairs to the right of me, and then like the cabinets and everything that the doctors would use are on my left. So they had to hook me up to an IV, and whoever they had doing my IV was like a trainee doctor. And there's nothing wrong. I don't mind that she was a trainee doctor or whoever it was. I don't really like remember what they look like, but I do remember as a trainee, I have really, really tiny veins. Like even now, I have to still use like the infant, like the kiddie needle when I get my blood drawn. So like at 2 or 3, like my veins were pretty much non-existent. So I don't blame her for like missing. She ended up missing like 15 times. And I feel really bad because like, I know like doctors have to get trained. Like you're not just immediately good, but I feel really bad for her because my dad was like, look, if you don't get someone in here that knows what they're doing, we're gonna have a problem. So then they got a doctor who's done it a billion times, and that guy did it. But I still feel really bad for that lady, and I wish I could like tell her like, hey, it's okay, it's okay. But who knows where she is now? Like she doesn't even live near me. So it was interesting. So they finally get the IV in, and the IV was basically an insulin drip. So pretty much the science behind this is, of course, if I'm 977, you want to get my blood sugar down to like normal, right? Well, you can't just take a bunch of insulin and then it goes down in an hour, because every time your blood sugar fluctuates, your brain swells. I have no idea why that happens, but it does. I had to learn that from my doctor my endocrinologist, because I used to take, if my blood sugar ever went high, of course it's not 977, but if it ever went high, like I used to have blood sugars that were 400 like sometimes, and I would just take a bunch of insulin to take it down. She's like, listen, you can't do that because your brain swells. So that's kind of what they had to do, but on a way larger scale, so they couldn't just give me a bunch and then get me back to normal. They had to do it over a few days. So they had the insulin drip from the IV, and every so often they would give me insulin, and I remember the first day, it was really scary because the first thing that I remember after being in the car was watching my dad, like, come in the room, because the door to the room is right in front of me, and I don't remember if the door shut or anything, but they're like, it's a huge walkway. You can see everyone going in and out, so I just, like, remember my dad coming in and, like, looking at me, and all I could do was move my eyes. So, like, I'm laying there, and all I can do is just this. I couldn't move my head because I didn't have enough energy to move my head. Like, I could breathe and I could move my eyes. That's about it. And I remember my dad, like, coming in, and he came in, and then he went to the right where all the chairs were, and, like, I turned my head, and that was, like, the first time that I turned my head, and I just looked at him, and he was completely, like, pale, and, like, he looked like he was gonna pass out. He looked really scared, and, like, I never seen him scared before, and I never seen him scared since then. So, like, it's just really memorable, like, his face. I'll never forget his face, like, ever. The next thing after that I don't remember, but my mom did remember. She told me when they were giving me shots. I know that the IV thing, it had insulin, but I think they might have given me, like, insulin through shots too. They had to give me some kind of shots. I'm not exactly sure what they were, but they did have to give me some kind of shots. And my mom said it was really hard for her, and she had to leave the room while they were doing it because I was in the bed, and I would be saying, like, help, Mom, help, don't make them do this to me. And that's gotta be heartbreaking, like, because you can't do anything. They're trying to help me, and of course it hurts because I'm 2 or 3, and they're, like, sticking needles in me, and I'm like, I don't want any of that. But she can't do anything, so she had to leave the room, and she had to let my grandparents stay in the room. My grandparents were also there. My grandparents stay in the hospital room while that was happening. So kind of in between me not wanting the needles and me being completely I can't move, because by the time I was telling her, like, hey, make them stop, I could speak. So sometime in between there, I had kind of come back to, like, the world. Like, I was never in a coma, but I just was unresponsive. Like, I could move my eyes, and I could move my eyes, but I wasn't really processing anything. I was just there, and I was looking, but not really, because I wasn't gathering any information. So my dad tells me that they had, like, you know, like the reflex test. I assume it's something like that. But they had something where they would test on me. I guess they poked me with something like that. And, like, I should have said something. Like, I should have said, ow, or, like, moved. And I didn't. And they kept doing that, like, over a course of days. And one day I was like, ow, stop. Or, like, I screamed. And that was the day they were like, okay, she's gonna be fine. Because I was coming back, I could feel stuff. And then, of course, I was able to talk after what my mom said, which was really unfortunate, but I was able to talk. I got to a point where I could walk, but my legs were really wobbly, so I had to lean on someone else. So, like, my mom, if we ever had to leave the room, like, if I ever had to leave the restroom, use the restroom, because there wasn't, like, it was just a hospital room, you know, I would have to hold on to, like, her arm or her shoulder, and then I would be able to walk. And it was really slow. It was a very slow walk. It's almost like if I were to sprain both of my ankles and then I tried to walk. It's not like my ankles are hurting, but I'm just saying, like, it was a slow walk. Like, it wasn't like I'm just gonna get up and I'm gonna walk now. No, it was really bad, but I did get to a point where I could walk. So after they had me in the IV or whatever for a little bit, I got out of the ER room and they put us in this hotel room. And I thought it was pretty cool because I had the IV like on wheels and then so I could like move around, and I still had the IV in my arm, but it was on wheels so I could like walk around, and I'd say hi to all the doctors and stuff in the hallway up to our room. And we stayed in the room for I think about 3 days, or 3 days in the room, maybe 2 days in the ER room. I think it was 5 days that we stayed there. So I did obviously get to a point where I could walk normally again. Full mobility, I don't think any, like, no brain damage or anything, which is really good. And I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about it. We got out of the hospital and been living with it ever since. My mom booked a trip to Alaska. I went to when I was 3, so that was like almost immediately after that. Just in case like anything was gonna go wrong. She wanted me to be able to see as much as I could see. So we went to Alaska. Alaska's pretty nice, I gotta say. I remember bits and pieces of that trip too. So that was really nice. I really loved doing that, and just I'm so proud of my parents. I'm proud of like my mom specifically, because like she was the one, she had to like take me. She had to like hold me as I'm like lifeless and just give me over to some doctors that like, first of all, the first set of doctors didn't know what was wrong with me, so that's got to be really scary. And then like she got to the ER and they do like another 4 hours of testing, and she's just like hoping that they know what's wrong. Because ultimately, if they didn't figure out what was wrong in time, well, what would have happened? I would have gone into a coma. But, like, she didn't know that. She might have just thought, like, oh, if they don't find it in time, I would just, like, die. And, I mean, yes, ultimately that would have been what happened, but it didn't happen. So she didn't have to go through that, which I'm very happy she didn't have to go through that. And, I mean, happy endings. I'm where I am now. I'm a lot older than 3 now. We learned, of course, that people can live with it. I'm completely independent now. I can go wherever I want. I can travel wherever I want. I don't have to have like a person to rely on. Completely independent since I was in 3rd grade. But that's pretty much how you figure out to answer everyone's question. You either get really sick like I did, or you beat being sick by random chance that some doctor's gonna pick up that you have it. That's the only 2 ways that you can figure it out, because you are born with it. We're born with some kind of deficiency where your pancreas will eventually stop working. Or not work enough. Like mine, it works, but it doesn't work very well. Like if I were to go a day without taking my insulin shots, same thing would happen. 977, spike straight up. Probably go even higher than that, but it's really unfortunate because just like people in my situation, like for me, I should have been in a coma. Like not everyone is 977. That's some bizarre number. Some people can be like 800, 700, 600, stuff like that. There are people that don't catch it in time and they go into a coma. And, I mean, you just gotta, at that point, you just gotta hope that they can come out of a coma. Because, like, just like now, like I was saying with the blood sugar being low, if your blood sugar is low and you go into a coma, that's why they have an emergency shot. It's like, it's labeled. It's got this box. It's like this big. It's orange. And it's emergency shot. And it's got all this stuff written on it. It's like, this is what you do if this happens. That's like your last line of, if your emergency shot doesn't work, like, what are you supposed to do? But they don't have an emergency shot for if your blood sugar goes really high, because like I said, you can't bring your blood sugar down as quick as you can bring it up, because your brain will swell and it will cause brain damage. And then that can kill you. So it's this gray area that you gotta be in between. It's really unfortunate, but that's how it happens. People are asking me, so I was like, hey, I'll just tell what my story was. That's exactly what happened to me. shortened a little bit, of course, but it's just, it comes out of nowhere. So I'm going to end this very, very long video. I'm probably going to cut it into 2 parts, actually. You guys are going to end on a cliffhanger one week. I'm so sorry about that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video and on part 1. If I do decide to split it into 2 different videos, share it to anyone you think this will be useful to. If you know anyone who has this disease, please share it with them, because I'd really like to know how other people knew that they were diagnosed. With all that stuff out of the way, remember everyone to stay happy.